down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just a cold hard truth. We're the ones who fight, and we're ready for you. When the truth's forever, we're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing. We're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. Rock and loaded, the truth's our ammo. We're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing. We're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. We don't back down, we stand our ground in the doghouse. We're the real all found, no change, no fear, just pure aggression. We're here to win, no second guessing. No second guessing. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. We don't back down, we stand our ground in the doghouse, where the real are found. No chains, no fear, just pure aggression. We're here to win, no second guessing. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just a cold hard truth. We're the ones who bite, and we're waiting for you. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just a cold hard truth. We're the ones who bite, and we're ready for you. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just a cold hard truth. We're the ones who fight, and we're ready for you.
Just realized that my audio was muted. Alrighty. So, welcome in, guys, ladies and gents. This is the Doghouse Show, or the Political Compass, episode 5. I'm still coming off of the TikTok stream that I just did. So forgive me if I'm a little shaky here. It's pretty crazy. Okay. I did 2 hours on TikTok. Okay. Literally nonstop debating. And guess what? We've got another hour of us debating, kind of, sort of. It's the Political Compass. Anyways, for anyone who's unaware, we're just jumping straight on into it. I'm already running about 5-10 minutes behind. This is the Political Compass, where we seek to bring everybody together from all different aisles and all different political philosophies and political ideas. We are trying to have reasonable conversations with reasonable people. A little spice is a little nice. So what we are going to do tonight, we're going to be talking about a few different topics. And we'll see where things go. Nothing is have to be set in stone, but some of those topics will include the FEMA Hurricane Helene response. There's been a lot of stuff going on there. We've seen some new jobs reports come out that are pretty cool. We've also got the Israel, Iran, Lebanon issue that I know Wes and our friend Tiberius are certainly going to have some fun with. And so, yeah, it's going to be overall a really fun night. Let's go ahead and get the show started. Let's get it rolling. Welcome in, Mark. And then at the end, we'll do a little bit of viewer call-ins. Maybe not a whole lot. I'm on a strict time schedule, so we'll see if anybody wants to come in. Make sure you join the Discord. All right, Tiberius, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Yeah, comms check. You good on my end? I just want to make sure.
Absolutely, buddy. I can hear everything.
Fan,
Can you hear yourself on my mic, or is it coming through perfectly fine?
you're doing good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello again, and it's great to be back here at the Political Compass, live and in person. Sometimes I'm out touching grass, so I'm not available to do so. In fact, my Wednesday panel I had to call in on. So anyway, yeah, my name is Tiberius D, and I am a center right kind of guy. I'm from the fields of Indiana, and currently just trying to make the best of my life. And I know that politics is kind of a mess right now, and it's probably going to be for a while. But I just try to give those Hoosier values out to people and see if they actually want to stick with them. Anyway, thanks for having me. We'll get into it.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to get y'all's opinion on this. Wes, go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy, and let us know a little bit about yourself.
My name's Wesley. I use he, they pronouns. Either set is fine. I'm gonna go ahead and fight you for that Hoosier value because I was born in South Bend, sir. No, I'm just kidding. I don't represent Indiana at all. I'm from Cleveland, and I guess I represent the leftist take on this podcast. And I think I just want to simplify what I say and just say, like, if you think of Bernie Sanders, I'm way left of that. And that's how I'll introduce myself from now on.
That sounds great. No, that sounds great. Yeah, and I'm your liberal for tonight. I have moved on from MAGA, and MAGA can go ahead and kiss my. So let's go ahead and jump into the first topic. All right. So the first topic we're going to talk about today is the Hurricane Helene response. I have been all over Twitter, all over talking about this. So this is my special topic about what I have seen going on. And so for anyone who's unaware, Hurricane Helene came through Florida earlier this week, went up through Georgia, hit, I think, a little bit of South Carolina, and then hit North Carolina and Tennessee pretty gnarly in those hills. In fact, one of the dams that were near that town of North Carolina, where we see a lot of the devastation, was on the brink of breaking. Luckily, it did not break. Otherwise, it would have been even more catastrophic than we had already saw, which is hard to believe. And throughout this, unfortunately, as is a election season, it has become a politicized issue. And so we have seen different rumors flying around and things like that. I'll kind of give my response, but I'm gonna go ahead and let Tiberius kind of throw his response, and then we'll go to Wes and see where he stands on this whole FEMA, Hurricane Helene, all of that. You can throw whatever you want in there on that.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of shocked that this is anyway a political issue at all because like people can talk about it, but it's bullshit. The reality is that the politics that actually means that anything's going to get solved here is doesn't exist. People can talk about FEMA, but the problem with FEMA is that it doesn't have a directive. It largely is due to the president and what it's supposed to do, and then it's funded by Congress, which Congress doesn't have any direct motive as far as what it's supposed to do. So, like, people can run and bitch about, oh, well, President Trump would want us this, and, you know, Joe Biden did this, but it's nonsense. Like, there is absolutely no directive for FEMA to do anything outside of the presidential directive. So we can get into that if you want. As far as the storm in particular, some people are talking about climate change. Yeah, sure, that's a bit of a thing too. But for me, the most important part is that it is a storm that kind of just went up from the Gulf and beelined it straight into the mountains of Appalachia, particularly the Smoky Mountains. These are areas I've been through before. I've been on the section I-40 that's been washed out. It totally sucks. I've got a friend who's not far from Asheville who can't get in and out of the city to a large degree. Actually, they took some pictures and sent them to me of a place that they were just eating lunch 2 weeks ago that's gone. Like the entire town is gone.
Yeah, it's insane.
So, long story short here, I don't think politics belongs in this conversation unless we're talking about either A, we need to revamp FEMA into a particular instrument, B, that like we need to talk about some kind of level of like national insurance or like what to do about it, or you know something else that is actually like something that makes an effect. I think 99% of this entire conversation that is political that I've seen is just people bitching about nothing, and then it just drives me nuts. So I'm gonna open up with that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Wes. Let us know where you stand on this.
There's a couple things. I think I think it's one thing. I'm actually very interested in what you would mean by like insurance. Like, do you mean like states buying insurance? But before I let you jump into that, because that's a new concept for me. I guess like some of my main takeaways are like there are a lot of people who are complaining about this before it's even remotely possible. Like I saw today where like people were using pack mules to bring in supplies to like Asheville, North Carolina, because it's so difficult to get any kind of like. I feel like there were so many people who expected there to be like 15-ton machines, like gigantic construction machines fixing everything on like day one, and it's like, bro, you literally can't get in there. Like the best you can do is bring like something like a pack mule or like just walk there yourself. You're not getting in there on a vehicle, let alone a construction vehicle. So like a lot of the response I've seen to me has just felt like ridiculous. Like, no, like North Carolina was not prepared for this. Like I lived in Georgia, and one of my friends in Georgia got hit by this hurricane, and they're like suffering greatly because of it. And I lived in that area of Georgia, and we would close the schools if we got like half an inch of snow because
Yeah.
the infrastructure just isn't made to deal with that kind of.
No.
And the infrastructure in these places is not made in a lot of instances to deal with a gigantic flood. By the way, was it Lake Lure Dam that you were watching?
Yes.
Because
Correct. Yeah.
I was watching that one too. I could not take my eyes off of it. I
Yeah.
was so fucking worried for those people. Anyway,
And it's a huge
I've
lake.
ranted long enough.
Just for anyone who's unaware and who's watching and does not know what Lake Lure is, it is a pretty large lake. And if Red Trunk could throw up a graphic of this while he's editing it, that'd be great, because this is an absolutely large lake. And had that dam broke, think about this. We've had a disaster that we had because the dam almost broke. Imagine if that dam did break, there would be nothing left of that town. It would be utterly gone.
It would have destroyed several large towns. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it would be beyond catastrophic. And it was very close for a long time.
It was very close. They said it was imminent. They're like, if you're downstream, get out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are you done, Wes? I want to make sure you're done before we go into.
I'm absolutely done.
So-
and I still wanted to hear what Tiberius had to say about insurance. Like, how would that work? Would that be like by state for FEMA?
I'll wait until Doghouse does his
Yeah,
intro on this particular topic, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so mine comes from a whole lot of different angles. I just literally spent 2 hours literally debating nothing but Hurricane Helene and some of the FEMA stuff. And what Wes said is exactly what I would say, which is a lot of people have asked, why are people being turned away? Well, simply because there's only a limited amount of people that can really be housed in a particular area unless you want to have tents on the side of the river. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a lot of people there if that is in fact what is happening. This is the other issue we're having is we're having a little bit of the Springfield issue going on, where we're having a lot of different hearsay things taking place, but not a lot of facts coming out from the ground. What we do see happening is a lot of recovery efforts going on. We see a lot of people donating their personal planes and helicopters and things like that to help with the efforts. We see neighbor helping neighbor. We see, like Wes said, pack mules even going up to these regions because it is a very mountainous region. It is insane to see just the neighbors helping neighbors. So if you can peel back and get through the politics and see the little glimmer of love and hope and joy, if I'm being a little bit halfway funny with that, when you see the joy of just everybody helping everybody and putting everything aside to just help those people. But unfortunately, it is an election season, and we have seen a lot of people coming around out and about talking about some of the policies that have led us to this particular issue. And it is just absolutely wild to see what is taking place. Go ahead, Tiberius. I'll let you respond to what Wes said.
Yeah, man. So as far as the insurance thing that I kind of like shot off the hip, I've had a few people talk to me about, and I kind of agree with it actually, but it usually is like someone on the left that will put this forward, is that if we're going to pay property taxes, we need to have whoever's we're paying the property tax to have some level of insurance that they're giving us for it. That should be wrapped up into it. So, if your county or your city or even your state is giving you is taxing you on your own property, then they should actually be able to guarantee some of the value that's on it. Maybe we, scale it in scope and whatnot, but it's one of those things where, we've got a lot of insurance companies in the country, and while they can do a lot of heavy lifting, there's a reality here. A lot of insurance companies are pulling out of Florida because it's just too much of a dangerous investment for them. We are now seeing a portion where we have some of these natural disasters that take out an entire city, and while you may have State Farm, and then you have Blue Medical or whoever the hell else is there, and I apologize, I'm mixing up medical insurance, but the long and the short is what I'm trying to get at is we've got some level of like broadband coverage, but the reality is that we are looking at events that can cause billions of dollars in damage. And there's a level where, like, why is the states not able to come in and kind of help, put stuff back together? Hell, we're still largely recovering New Orleans to a large degree after Hurricane Katrina. Like, it hasn't really recovered. The general take here, and I'm not trying to be like verbose about this, is just people are proposing that, maybe it's time that we have a significant conversation about property insurance in the country. And I kind of agree that maybe it's time. Definitely do.
Yeah.
So you and I are, I think, both extremely verbose in general. But I completely agree with what you're saying. We should nationalize and socialize disaster response and insurance.
But I feel like we've kind of done that though, right? And this is kind of the biggest issue is like, if you look at and I know FEMA, some people will say is ineffective. And I can sympathize with that. But I think if we look at like FEMA is that response, right? To these disasters.
It's not like FEMA isn't there to make you whole. And like this is actually, and this is the issue that I kind of brought up. This is the real conversation that I really want to fall out with, is that FEMA doesn't have an actual directive. It's like, okay, it's Federal Emergency Management Response, right? Well, what does that actually mean? You go up and look on FEMA's website. You go look at any act of Congress. There is no directive as far as how they're actually supposed to do this, or more importantly, what is the status on which they are supposed to like be there and then finally pick their shit up and leave. And kind of a one-off, but true, is that the last FEMA truck did not leave New Orleans until 6 years after Katrina had happened. Like,
what is that? What point does that prove, though? I don't think that's.
It means it doesn't. It means it doesn't know what it's supposed to do, and it changes literally from administration to administration. Both the left and the right.
But you also said that even New Orleans hasn't been completely rebuilt since Katrina.
Right.
But then you're also criticizing the fact that FEMA was there for so long. So like, which one is it? Like,
it's both.
Do they need more help, or do they? Is it?
It's not a okay. Part one of this conversation is, at what point are you supposed to show up? Do you show up for a tornado? Do you show up for everything? That's not outlined. Like, my general conversation of A is that there is no fucking outlines for FEMA when they're supposed to show up and how long they're supposed to be there. There's just no bounds for that. So we're all bitching and moaning.
When the federal government decides.
No, it's when the president decides it. It's not even the feds. It's just the president.
Okay, just the president.
And so that can vary from administration to administration as much as we want. So literally, one of the big conversations that needs to be coming out of this particular event is, for me, do you think Joe Biden would be better? Or sorry, basically now Kamala, right? Kamala. Is Kamala going to be better at getting FEMA to? Is Kamala going to be better at running FEMA so that in the event that you're fucked, that they show up and do a good job, or is Trump going to be? But that's not the conversation we're having. It's like, oh, why isn't FEMA doing this? Why isn't FEMA doing that? Because it's up to the president. It's not actually an act of Congress to say this is their fucking job.
I kind of disagree on this, and so
okay,
let me go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so well, let's try to be careful on. I don't want to team up on Ty over here. Okay, look.
No, go for it. I'll take you both on this show.
Yeah, let's do it. So, when it comes down to FEMA, I'll use an example of what one of the big things that's going on right now, and that's the Shelter and Services Program. Okay, the Shelter and Services Program, for anyone who's unaware, basically allocated $650 million to help house immigrants. This is a long story short of it. They would issue grants to a lot of nonprofits and government entities to try to do that, and they've already started to do that. This was funded in March by Congress. So Congress does fund a lot of these different initiatives and earmarks for FEMA. The president will then issue those disaster declarations, opening up the gates for FEMA to then be able to respond, right? So that's where it's like, I agree with you to some extent that there is the president that really has to have a say in these things. But a lot of what you need from the next administration is one who's able to work across the aisle and really boost up our FEMA funding. And in fact, the funny thing about this, I just want to say this one thing, and then I'll let you go off, Wes, or Ty and then Wes, is that when it comes to the shelter and services program, for anyone who's unaware, if you hear this narrative, okay, that there are immigrants that are being chosen over the normal people, just know I did my research. Okay. It turns out that a vast majority, 25 of 24 Republican senators voted yes to funding that program in March of 2024 under House Resolution 2882. Then if you look at, I don't have the exact numbers here, but if you look at how many Republican representatives funded that program, it was 154. And guess who one of those people were? I didn't even find it. One of them was Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene funded the shelter and services program. Now, I'm going to say one last thing on this little information tidbit, and then we'll move on. Also important to note, out of all the people who funded the shelter and services program, only one from North Carolina, all reps from North Carolina approved the bill except for one rep. And I don't even remember his name. I think it was like Butler or something. So all Republicans from that area did that. And lastly, the senators, there's 2 senators in North Carolina. I think it was Tillis, who ended up supporting that program, so voted yes, and 1 voted no. So anyways, I wanted to mention that because that's the narrative going around, and it's been really driving me nuts. And it took me almost 2 hours last night to find out where the hell did this program come from. And I finally found it, and it was a joy of relief. And I swear I was spamming everybody. I was like, please share this tweet. I need it to go viral. And it kind of sort of did, but not really. It kind of died. But anyways, it was like any other bill in Congress. It just died on impact. But anyways, go ahead, Tiberius.
Yeah, so most of what you said, I don't feel like the need to reply to, because it's like a lot of this is politics, right?
Sure.
It's like, oh, well, the immigrants. Well, I don't have a problem with immigrants, and I don't have a problem with like having a conversation about like funding certain things about that. While I am like pro removing ourselves from the Asylum Act, that's a whole other conversation. So we'll excuse me, dying up here a little bit. Getting back into where you were kind of at least going with this is that, yeah, like Congress funds FEMA, but like my general part here is that, do we know if they're getting enough funding? Well, we don't, because it is that presidential directive that makes it. So you can have a president that says, I'm never going to use FEMA. Now, hopefully we never elect somebody to do that, but that's a reality we have to deal with. I would almost argue that having the direction of FEMA should be on people's minds to the degree that the Supreme Court is, and putting up those appointments, because that is the majority of the decision making that's going to be going on here. And I think this is actually a great example of how much this matters. Is Joe Biden doing a good job at directing FEMA? I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to let you guys answer that yourselves. But it is one of those things where, like, I would rather see the conversation of, is Kamala better for FEMA, or is Trump better for FEMA? But we're actually having the conversation, why isn't anyone helping? Why isn't there this help or that help? It's because the guy in charge doesn't have those resources. We didn't mandate that they were supposed to be able to do that. There's no primary on, oh, hey, how long are they going to stay? Well, as long as he wants. What are they going to do? Okay, they house people and they help people to some degree. They might have some construction agreement. Most of what they do is that they just have emergency services, as far as like having some portable generators to set up in critical areas. They generally have a bunch of food and water that they can get to people, but they don't really have much in the way of structure equipment. You know what they do if they need it? They call the Army Corps of Engineers. They actually call them instead. Should they have it? I don't know. That's a great question.
That's so normal for them to call the Army Corps of Engineers.
I didn't say that was a problem. Like the problem. Okay, there's an optics problem that I'm like putting forward, and then there's an actual like follow through. So the optics problem is everyone's bitching about what FEMA is doing right now, right? Because it's either way too much or not enough, because reasons. I'm just saying and putting forward that this country needs to have, if we're gonna actually be pissed off about what FEMA's doing, then maybe it needs to be an actually federal directive by Congress. Here's the outline. Okay, any natural disaster that takes out power to over 1,000 people, FEMA shows up to. What do? They're going to stay there. They're going to help people get food and water and emergency services until, one, all transportation into the localized area is back up and running. So if your interstate washed out, like I-40, like we're going to be there until I-40 is up and running again. Two, we're going to wait until you have all your working utilities again, such as power and water and all that. That's my two. That's just it. Those are my two. We're going to stick around until those two are back up and running. So you're not going to see folks still stick around in New Orleans for 6 years because they've got what they need. It's just people aren't going to rebuild half a city that's been flooded. And that makes sense to me. Some of these places shouldn't be there anymore. I don't know why you're living in Florida, to be completely honest, but hey, do what you want.
Yeah, so that's my whole thing is like when I look at the federal aid thing that's going on, I personally am fine with us having FEMA. And also Trey, I was trying to get Twitter up. Want to acknowledge you, Trey. Welcome in, buddy, from Twitter. When it comes to this, I feel like FEMA does have something like that in place, but it's so situational. Not every situation with FEMA that involves FEMA is going to be the same. That's the hard thing about it. With the DoD, it's very structured. It's very easy to put in place certain policies. But like when you have a hurricane that comes through the middle of the Smoky Mountains, how do you prepare for that? I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't know, right? And so that's why for me, it's like where my direction was more going with this is that I think that you really need to get, oh, what's going on? Miss Mandy, you know what? Look, Miss Mandy popped in, and you know what? It's a perfect time. I'll take this drop in. Miss Mandy, how are you doing? I have not talked to you yet, and I am so glad that we're able to talk right now. For anyone who's unaware, Miss Mandy is one of our lovely followers from YouTube, and she has blessed us with her appearance. There she is. So, Miss Mandy, let me get your opinion on where this is going with because we've actually, me and Miss Mandy have talked, and you have some firsthand experience of what's going on there with the Hurricane Helene response. So go ahead and let me know.
In the middle of it, yeah.
Yeah, let me know how you feel and what you've been experiencing through this response and how you handle things with FEMA.
Well, I just got a message from FEMA about 2 hours ago, and they said it would be 3 to 6 months before I got my $750.
Wow. Yeah, I have not looked into that, and so I have no idea why that's the case. I wonder if that's just kind of a message to try to, hopefully it's not 3 to 7 months.
I think it's like it could be that long kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also for people that are asking for paper checks. I put in my direct deposit information.
If it's paper checks, that certainly could be why it may take a little long. 3 to 6 months seems so long.
Yeah.
That seems really wild. And that's the whole thing, right? Is that like, and this goes kind of more to Tiberius's point about really wanting to pull this out a little bit away from, the government handling things and more put it in a place of insurance. Ty, if I'm misspeaking for you, please let me know.
A little bit, yes. So I only forwarded this because it's something that's been thrown at me, is that a lot of people are upset that like we have private insurance, but it's not always mandatory. A lot of times when it comes to property insurance, it is, but like to the degree of care that it is mandatory is wildly out of sync. So you might have someone like Illinois that has pretty robust protections for property insurance, but you might have somewhere like North Carolina that does not. That largely is just like, hey, you have to have some kind of coverage, guaranteeing up to
insurance.
Huh? You guys don't have mandatory? Yeah. No. When I said they don't have robust, I'm saying like their guidelines are significantly less than somewhere like Illinois. This is actually one of those things that's political. Yeah, no problem. This is one of those things that's actually a very big difference between red states and blue states. Red states have significantly less insurance prerogatives than blue states do. And I have no problem if people want to turn that into an election issue. 100% makes sense. It's like, hey, if we're going to have a conversation on insurance, whether you want to privatize it or sorry, not privatize it, whether you want to nationalize it like West does, or you want to just like change the protections given to where it's like, no, you need to have, instead of $100,000, you need $250,000 worth of damages to be able to cover. Actually, hey, guess what? You have to cover flood insurance. If you're not willing to, you're, tough shit. Get out of the market. I think that's a real conversation because even my old house that's in a floodplain is not covered by flood insurance, and there's no protection from Indiana to say that it should be. I have to pay out a whole bunch of extra money to do that. I apologize. I'm balancing a conversation between my chat and that. But
It's okay,
overall,
man.
that's my general take.
Yeah, no, you're good. Wes, you've been kind of quiet over there, buddy. You want to chime in on this, or where are you kind of feeling? Because I kind of feel for Miss Mandy, right? Like, and I've been in that same situation, right? Where because I live right in Texas, where we've had a lot of issues with our government kind of stepping up when they really need to be, right? And so, what are your takes on this as to this response and how long that 3 to 6 months is taking and all that? Do you have any take on this? I know you've been kind of quiet and hanging in the background a little bit.
Uh, no, I mean, my main take on it is basically what I've already said is that, like, what are you expecting at this point? Like, do you think you're gonna see like 15-ton construction vehicles rolling down your rural street? Uh, like
It would
while
be
it's
nice.
halfway flooded? Yeah, it would be fantastic, but like how easy like I wanted to go support my friend in Georgia because her house got like destroyed, and she was just like, no, you like I want you to be here, but you can't get here in a car. Like, and so I mean that's even harder for like giant
Sure.
construction vehicles and like 18 wheelers that are going to be bringing supplies. So like I is the biggest part of me just wonders, what are you expecting FEMA to do? Like,
Well,
do you
FEMA can send
just like to go
money
like drown
electronically.
all of their 18
Hey,
wheelers
Wes, let
and
let Wes let Miss Mandy respond real quick. Go ahead, Miss Mandy.
I'm sorry. FEMA can send money electronically so we can order food because what we can do, what we were doing was walking to the end of the block where it was blocked off and literally picking up food and walking back home. It was rough, but we were doing it.
no, I do agree with you as far as like the monetary payments to individuals that should be able to be done instantly and like
Yeah.
that shouldn't be withheld for any reason. I'm more so attacking the people who are like, why isn't FEMA sending trucks in? Why aren't they doing anything?
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
They can't get there. They
but
can't get there.
that's
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and that's my whole thing. So they can't get there to do the big things that FEMA is set up to do. But like the
Yeah.
and I'll go ahead and just give you a straight segue into your next topic here.
Yes, because I
Is
because I
that
kind of feel like
you
we're kind of running. I feel like we're all in pretty much agreement
no
here that
I
yeah,
got you. FEMA does what the president tells it to do, and that's why the VP debate was so useless to me because the
Yeah.
VP tells or that it only does what the president tells them to do. So like the VP debate to me was very nothing. I don't give a shit. But let's
yeah.
talk about the VP debate.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's move into the VP debate a little bit. And I want to segue this a little bit, but I also want Miss Mandy, you like I said, you're there on the ground. You're going through all this. Do you know? I want to do a shout out to my viewers and anybody who may be watching this after the fact. Where can people really spend and help donate for certain causes for these communities that have been mostly affected? I know the Red Cross is one of the areas that people can donate to, but what other areas can they help that you're
The
aware of?
Red Cross is doing way more than FEMA, so donate to the Red Cross. Really, the Red Cross is on the ground. Their boots on the ground. They're crawling over trees to go to people's houses.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it before in my life. They
That's
were
crazy.
with the what do you call the temporary army people?
Oh, the National Guard.
National Guard. They
There
were
you go.
they were with the National Guard, actually climbing over trees to come to the house and deliver food boxes. It was amazing.
That's
Um,
amazing. Okay. Well,
so I
yeah.
would
So
donate to the Red Cross.
that sounds great. So yeah, guys, if you're watching this, I want to segue the segment by saying, please make sure you go out if you're able, and please donate if you're able to go down there and help the people in North Carolina. Obviously, that you do it. I would say that there has been rumors that people are being turned away. I don't know if that has to do with logistics reasons because of the fact that they're not able to house people. I'm not quite sure what that specific rumor mill has gotten started from, or what the actual factual, I love that, basis is. But if you can help any way you can, please make sure you are able to do so. They are absolutely being devastated and have been. And so, anyways, let's segue into the VP debate. So, the VP debate happened, for anybody who was unaware, because of all the craziness that our political cycle is. It happened earlier this week. Surprise. I know, it feels like it was 2 months ago. So what happened last week is we had Vance and Walz face off in the debate. I'll give you all my brief summary, is that I felt that Walz was much more authentic. I felt that Walz was a little shaky at times. He was not very professional. And I think that that is because of the fact that he's not really ever been on a national stage, let alone having to do these debates. Whereas if you look at his running mate, Kamala Harris, she has done nothing but run on the national stage. And so she has familiarity with it. If you look at Vance, on the other hand, Vance is much more polished. For anyone who's unaware, he graduated from Yale. Okay, so that says he's pretty darn smart, at least in that regard. And so he has some of that experience. And so I think with Vance, he came off much more polished, but less authentic, and somewhat of an asshole in some degrees. But it just depends on how you look at it. And then Walz, I felt, was more authentic, and I felt that he was a little shaky. So who won the debate? It was very close, but I just had to go with my boy Walz, Coach Walz. I had to go for Coach Walz. If it's a tie, I go for Coach Walz just because I love Coach Walz. But let's go ahead. Let's go to Wes first. Wes, where do you stand on this? Oh, you already said Tiberius. Let's
No,
go ahead.
I do have like a couple things to add to that.
Yeah.
I do think that Coach Walz won. I don't think that the vice presidential debate is that informative. Like I said, like I don't think it matters that much. I do love the clip of JD Vance saying we said we weren't going to fact check. That's just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Oh, that made him look great.
Yeah,
I can't wait to fight you guys on this.
I love it. Let's do it. I love it. All right.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, Tiberius, you go. What you go ahead.
Yeah, so I regret to inform you that I actually believe that Vance won this debate. Granted, I do believe I believe that the win conditions were different here for the candidates because you have to prove different things. To a large degree, this is both of them. This is kind of their first time on a national stage. There was a lot of people who had no idea who these people are, or if they have, they've seen a lot of gaffes and a lot of clips, right? So let's get into that real quick. Vance is kind of made off to be kind of nuts. Remind you that like the entire Tim Kaine, or sorry, not Tim Kaine, that's the last guy. Tim Walz. Sorry.
Come on, man.
You guys keep Democrats. Stop putting up everyone named Tim. Okay, I'm just saying. Yeah. So Tim Walz has largely been trying to make the narrative like the Republicans are weird, and to be fair, it's been pretty effective. A lot of these gaffes that you've probably seen of Senator Vance has been a lot of those. I was kind of impressed to see this guy on stage because I thought he was going to be just as much of a jackass as Trump was. I will state for the record, I'm blown away by this. This is a B+, A- level debate, where the presidential debate was like a D- debate. It was real. Now, granted, I did not watch the whole thing because I just don't have that kind of time. I literally first got the chance to watch it today before this. But both of them did well. I'm not going to act like neither of them did well. The problem is that for Vance, he needed to do largely two things for his victory condition. One, show that he's not crazy. And to show that he cares and that he wants to do stuff. If anything, he was energetic, he was passionate, and he was incredibly good with his rhetoric. He was good at taking the spin of whatever conversation was thrown at him and applying it into ways where he's like, hey, look, this is how we're going to help. This is what we're going to do. Walz needed to have a level of personality. He did. I thought he was actually one of the most... this is the first time I've seen a politician come off as a real person to a large degree. Where it's just like, yeah, man, I'm kind of just doing my thing. I'm doing the best we can, and I believe in this. Walz looked compassionate. Walz looked like he actually cared. He actually is cool grandpa, unironically enough. I can totally see why a lot of people thought Walz won that conversation. The problem is that when it comes to impact, is that I think Vance just knocked it out of the park where Walz kind of floundered a little bit. And this is where the conversation is. If you look at the clip alone, about how it's like, hey, I thought you guys weren't going to fact check me. Maybe you'll have a different conclusion. But if you watch the whole, or at least the debate where that segment is, he makes a good point. The problem is it looks like the moderators are constantly scooping to help Waltz the entire debate, or at least the debate, the parts that I had seen, where Vance is like taking on all of them. And like I would have phrased it a different way personally, but I think the American people can see that, and if they care at all, if you're a moderate, kind of in the situation that I am, I think it actually helped where he's just pointing out where it's like, hey, you know, like that's his job, not yours. So, you know, I understand, like I would have gone a little harder with it. I'd be like, hey, look, I understand the old man needs some help. You know, he is going after me. But honestly, he's doing a pretty good job. So maybe shut the fuck up. Like that's literally kind of what he did, just in a nicer way. And I think it worked great. I absolutely do. I think this idea is like, you aren't supposed to fact check me. It's kind of ridiculous if you watch the debate. So anyway, I'm done. But that's my general take.
Yeah, go ahead, Miss Mandy. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think Waltz won it. It surprised me.
You mean
I
Vance
didn't
or Waltz?
expect that.
Vance or Waltz, yeah.
I'm sorry, Vance. I think
Okay.
Vance. won
I
it.
was like, wait a
And
minute.
I was
or
rooting.
Waltz?
I was rooting the other way. I was, but Vance won me over on that one. Saying I thought you weren't going to fact check me, and that was almost word for word. Made it seem like that they called him out on something that wasn't true. He should have worded it differently, but he did good. He was surprisingly charismatic. He had all his information down, and I checked them on a rule that Waltz called out. Oh, that's been on the book since 1990. That's not true. Which I can't expect him to memorize every law and rule in the book. But I think he did really well. He was very likable. And the fact that they were fact checking him and not fact checking Walls, Vance seemed more likable.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those like, which angle do you come from, right? And I think that's where I say that it's so close that it's difficult. I'll let you jump in just a second, okay?
Yep.
So one of the things is that when I like look at how Vance came off, I saw it from more of I get what he was saying, but at the same time, it kind of looked like the way it came off was almost like, hey guys, I thought you were going to let me get away with this bullshit. Like that was kind of the way I took it, right?
Yeah.
That was the way it came off. I understand that how he said it, but it was that tone. You know, whenever you're like, listen, I'm going to say it really quietly because my wife's right out there. But like, you know, it's like whenever there's a miscommunication between your spouse and you're like, you sit there and you're like, honey, you said it in an angry tone. I'm like, no, I didn't. I didn't say it in an angry tone. I'm like, but that's how I heard it. And so that's kind of the same thing. It's like, I understand I love you, honey. No, I'm playing. Man, I do love my wife. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'll stop. I'm literally the Doghouse Show. I'm not trying to mimic my show.
You said you're playing, so we heard you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so
I want to get in with
Yeah, go
this a
ahead.
little bit, unless you're done.
No, go ahead.
I can totally see why the polls indicated like that was a 50-50 shot. I think both of them did very, very well. And to a degree, I would say like Waltz came off to me as more endearing, right? It's
Yes.
not like he's just sitting there and he just got his ass handed to him. He didn't.
Mhm.
He had like information. He had knowledge. Like he was arguing, and part of it was just differences of opinion on like, hey, how should we treat illegal immigrants, whether we want them in the country or not, and how we're going to go about that. I think that was actually in a humane way and in a real conversational way brought forward from both parties. I'm actually going to put it in this regard. I hate to say this, but I would rather these two be running for president than the other two that are. Like this actually shows some decency, some character, and like what I have a problem with from both of these candidates is that Waltz isn't very well known, but at least from what it seems like, he is actually 100% respected largely by his community, and I think that he's got some leg room to do. When it comes to Vance, he's got a track record of kind of being a little nuts with the Springfield conversation that's happened earlier. But to a large degree, both of these seemed informed, intelligent, passionate people who literally want the job, and they're the ones arguing for the job that doesn't really matter that much. If anything, I want to bitch about that debate is that they want to throw Kamala under the bus, and it's like, you're talking about the position that literally doesn't get to do jack shit. So it's kind of wild that the people who seem to be more affluent and capable are the ones that are running for the position that is kind of a lackluster dud. It will
really
probably be
disagree
important
with
this.
you.
Sure. I would say that this will probably be more important in this round because who wins the president or the vice presidency is probably going to make a difference this round because we're probably going to have a 50-50 Senate, in which case this will matter. But more often than
That's
not, outside of that, there's nothing really that these people have control over. The vice president is basically a political pit bull for the presidency, and if they agree, then it's great. If they don't agree, then you're kind of in a mess. And I'd find it hilarious to see actually Vance and Trump as their presidential VP team because it's very clear these guys don't agree on a lot. It's kind of funny actually. But anyway, I'm done with my soliloquy.
Are you talking about like you talking about Vance and Trump don't agree on much, or
They don't. Like
No,
it's
and-
very it's very
it's
clear
so-
to me they don't.
it's wild? And like, if we want to kind of take this away from the debate a little bit, because I feel like we're all starting to kind of agree a little bit. The one thing that I think is really interesting to me when you look at these candidates versus their running mates, Walz and Kamala seem like unison. They're like locked in side by side. Also, real quick before I go on to that, I do want to mention I thought it was really fitting that Coach Walz, after it, he went like he was as if he was a coach. He ended up going to a pizza place to get pizza. I thought it was hilarious. But anyways, so yeah, I think that when you look at like Vance and Trump, I've always felt that they're so disconnected from each other. Like I just feel like Vance is like saying, "Yeah, I'll condemn this, and I'm not afraid to say that it was like this." And then Trump will just go on the other complete side and say the complete opposite thing. And it's like, wait a minute, y'all aren't on the same messaging here. Like you're supposed to, if you say it, Vance, he's supposed to say it. But it's like y'all are opposite. It's like, and then I think the other thing that was really interesting to me is a lot of his comments, and this they brought this up in the debate.
Sorry, I'm getting a work call. I gotta go. I apologize.
No problem, no problem. Thank you, Miss Mandy, for jumping in. Shout out to Miss Mandy, guys. If you do not see, please give Miss Mandy a follow on YouTube. She has blessed us with her presence, and I am super grateful. But that's the thing is when we look at like Vance and Trump, it's just they're so disconnected. What do you think, Wes? You've been kind of quiet, hiding off in the background a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's somewhat on purpose. I don't like pay that much attention to electoralism.
That's fair.
I don't know. I don't really have a take on this. I don't really care.
I gotcha. Well, hey, let's go ahead and do something where we're both going to care. And I know that this is going to be a topic that you and Ty are going to just absolutely eat up. We have about another 10. Here we go. Hey, look, I hope you guys stayed, okay, for the final round. Because this final round is going to get juicy, okay? We kind of both agreed about FEMA. We kind of both agreed about the debate. Forgive me for picking really terrible topics, okay? The news was kind of crazy. We just had a Butler thing go on. Not thing, but like a Butler rally. I'll shut up. I'm not working here, okay? I'm not doing good. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Israel, Iran, Lebanon, Middle East cluster hell, okay? So what we're going to do is I want to go ahead and talk about this for anyone who's unaware. Israel and Lebanon have ramped up their attacks on each other. We've seen things happen between Israel and Iran now, even where Iran had just lobbied several ballistic missiles towards Israel. And that's about where I left off on any kind of news. So if there's any more current news, I will leave this to the two experts who absolutely know more about foreign policy than I could ever imagine. So Tiberius, go ahead and kick us off on this debate topic because I know this thing's going to kick us off for probably a few minutes.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna say like the context, and then I'll just kind of throw my opinion in here. The context is that this week is that we've already had this on the show a couple of times where the Middle East is quote unquote heating up, right? And to a large degree this week we have seen that Iran has struck Israel with ballistic missiles. Granted, these aren't like nuclear tipped or anything. These are just shit that goes really high and then comes back down and smacks somebody in the head. There was a lot of support for this among certain administrations in certain countries. We can probably get into that later. But it's kind of one of these deals where we're seeing the globe kind of unite under teams right now. And I think that's actually probably the more important conversation that we should have going in. But like American, British, and I believe there's a couple other countries that actually had some of their air forces deployed to Israel to help intercept these missiles. It's one of the most wild things I've seen in geopolitics for a while is just how many countries are coming together on each side. You've actually got.
I just want to mention.
I'm not done. I love you guys.
I have to interrupt for just a second because I have Mr. Geek that just totally interrupted with a prime sub. Thank you for the submarinos. Okay, that's it. I have to jump.
Hold your talks, guy. Hold your
All right.
thanks, damn you. But yeah, good to see you, Mr. Geek. Anyway, just to finish this off, is that, or at least for the like context, is that there is a lot of countries that are supporting Iran as well. A lot of them I don't particularly like, so I'm not going to give you the list, but just say that authoritarians are us is really seeming to be a thing right now. And then here's my opinion. People were talking about this in my Discord on Tuesday, saying it's like, hey, look, it looks like Iran and Israel are like, at the doorstep of war. Things are happening. And my reply was as simple as it possibly could be. Guys, it's Tuesday. And that's the reality. This is the average weekday in the Middle East. It's not new. We shouldn't be surprised by this. If anyone remembers like the Intifadas in the 1990s, hey, guess what? We're back here again. What? Israel invading Lebanon? Oh, wait, I saw that before. It was in 2008. It's like, guys, this is nothing new. So, like, I would say, okay, that's a lie. There's a lot of this that is, it's kind of normal, right? The Middle East is half the time just a walking dumpster fire, and it has been since the Ottomans left. On the other side of that is that what is new is at least the level that I want to talk about is how globally more and more people are getting involved, whether it be tangentially through a little bit of aid and a little bit of love, and maybe, hey, here's a couple of missiles, go throw it at Israel, or the vice versa, where it's like the American and British Air Forces are showing up to intercept missiles to help out Israel. That's kind of new. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soliloquy, and if Wes wants to add anything, go for it.
Go ahead, Wes. Jump on in there. Go for it, buddy.
I mean, I see it completely differently. I see it as the U.S. funding a proxy war through Israel, and Israel attempting knowingly retaliations from Iran, which would allow them to escalate, which has allowed them to be in the current position that they are now, where U.S. forces are assisting them and have boots on the ground. Like, that, to me, feels like it's obvious, or has been obvious for at least a year, that, like, Israel wants U.S. boots on the ground. We're like the big brother on the football team, and they're like the fucking freshman prick that wants to piss people off. And I feel like they wanted this type of retaliation from someone like Iran, so that we would do what we're currently doing now, which is putting boots on the ground as American
I think
armed forces.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doghouse.
Yeah.
and then I'll go after.
Here's my take on this: is I think that we are in a unique bit of time for a couple of reasons. We have I feel like, and I could be wrong in this, so I'm willing to be educated on this. I feel like having Israel having a war now with Gaza, having a war with Palestine, whatever, that Hezbollah, and now also having it with the people down there in Gaza, whatever you call it, having those two regions going at it seems like we're now having, and then Iran jumping in. It does feel like this is just a different set of situations. And now we also have the U.S. posturing with their warships at the ready, waiting to press the button.
I want to jump in here and say, in Gaza, it's Hamas, which is the government, and in Yemen, it is the Houthis, and in Lebanon, it is Hezbollah.
Yes, gotcha. So there you go. So, and that's my whole thing is like, you don't just have a single like little spat, right? Like, so we may have had instances in the past, and we did have this only not too long ago, where Iran was lobbying missiles at Israel, but that was it. And then it was, I believe, when I think this was after October 7th or something like that. And then they invaded Gaza and all that stuff. It's just, so to me, it just feels like this is different. Now, to what extent is this World War III? I don't think that. No. But I think there's a lot of recipes in the world that could lead to it. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I do feel that if we put in a certain president, that it could lead to World War III. Could, because of the posturing on where that particular president sides with certain world leaders. He tends to side with a little bit more authoritarian presidents. Put it that way.
Viktor Orban, he loves me. Big
That
fan.
was wild. That was wild to me. But okay, Tiberius, I've been kind of taking the space a little bit, and this isn't my wheelhouse.
No,
so
you're
go ahead.
fine. I'm definitely on the topic of Trump. I'm not going to defend his love affair with despots. It's a little cringe. No, actually, it's giga cringe. On the other side of that, when it comes to Iran and Israel, one of the things that Wes says that's a little weird to me is that earlier this year, Biden was kind of ramping up the political pressure on Israel a little bit, where they were actually going to drop one of our amphibious barges that actually has like supplies and a little bit of assault, landing assault capabilities. And what we were going to do is we were going to road up our, I can't remember what they're actually called, but they're basically amphibious tanks. And we weren't going to go in and invade Gaza, but we were going to send about 1,000 Marines in with this amphibious force. And we were going to actually make sure that the Gazans had some level of supplies because you can't get anything in and out. We were actually going to break the Israeli blockade. Israel said, get fucked. So the idea that Israel's happy for boots on the ground is a little weird to me because it's very clear they've already told us this year they don't want our boots on the ground. What it really comes down to is that Israel, I don't think is our best friend personally.
No,
I've
Wait, can I just quick
Go ahead.
response to that? I think that they don't want to see our boots on the ground as humanitarian aid, but they will see our boots on the ground, and they want to see our boots on the ground as military.
I guess there's a level of distinction in there. They definitely don't want humanitarian aid, and I think that's the tactically sound strategy here, is that you don't want to feed people who are trying to kill you. Pretty based. On the other side of this is that do they want us to actually help them in their wars against like Iran and Hezbollah or Gaza? Let's be real, Hezbollah and
But we've already been helping. We gave them almost like $11.3 billion last year, if not over 12 billion, or this year.
are we talking about just like government aid, or are we talking like APAC and shit? Because there's a whole different conversation between the two.
No, I'm talking about what we give to Israel, not what we give to Gaza.
No. What I'm asking here is that are you talking about like U.S. federal aid that goes to Israel, or are you talking like APAC contributions? Because
What is no? I'm not talking money coming. APAC contributions is money coming into the country to our politicians from Israel.
It goes
I'm
both
talking
ways.
about what I know exactly.
yeah, it literally goes.
I'm
both ways.
talking about what we've approved and sent to them
Yeah.
because
and-
of the APAC contribution.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with like $12 billion aid to Israel. I think I outlined this in the
Really? But
Yeah,
that's funding the bombings that we're talking about.
I don't have a problem with the bombings that we're talking about. Like I thought I recognized this out like in the last like 2 times we've talked about this. I'm generally
Probably.
pro-Israel on this whole deal. Is that while I think Israel is going to do some shit that a lot of Americans are going to be like, ooh, like not the best thing to do. There's a level where like we're saying this out of a place of quote unquote privilege, where it's like we're not literally facing what I consider a civil war with people who fucking hate us and who want to kill us. And the reality here is that either you can have the take from me personally that it's like, hey, look, I just can't stomach this. I don't want to support either side. I can get with that, or we can have the conversation of, hey, there's one group of people in this civil war that we like and that we're probably going to help out, aka the Israelis, and we can admit that and we can just roll with it, or we just get out. I'm cool with either of those options. If anyone wants to take the other side, I think you're an anti-American.
Look.
Just fuck off. But yeah,
I think you're right. We've discussed this enough times. Let's move back to like the main issue of like what do we think that this greater strike on the Middle East is what I'm gonna call it means? Because like it seems to me like Israel right now is lashing out at every country that borders it or somewhat borders it and has what the Western media would call a terrorist organization. So like why is all of this happening? Why is Israel just deciding to strike Syria? And like they're all of a sudden going for the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas, and like this seems like a war on terror that's being committed by Israel instead of the war on terror that we did after 9/11. You know?
I mean, this isn't like rocket science to me in any particular way. The reality is that Israel, whether you support them or not, is being attacked by pretty much all these people in one facet or another.
Is there a reason that they're being attacked?
Yeah, because they're hated.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, and I'm trying to be careful on how far back I go on here, but we are approaching the eve of probably one of the events that probably led to them responding
Yes.
to the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
you know.
but this is so ignorant of history, though.
No,
like
I know this.
We
what, like,
know the Houthis,
it's a constant.
even back in like the very beginning of this year, when they first responded, they told them all you have to do is stop being genocidal toward Palestine, and we will stop attacking you.
And Israel's like, we're not being genocidal. We're not literally bumping into people's houses and putting 2 in the chest and 1 in the dome. If you want genocide, we'll show you what it is. Because we've had it happen to us. Israel's actually playing pretty fucking nice here. Because the reality is that if they wanted to be genocidal, they could, and they're not.
Dude, that's horrible. I have so many books to recommend to you.
Look, you don't need to recommend me the books. Like, I've looked at it. It's a tacit like escalation of violence and hatred that's been going on for now 80 years. If you want to blame anybody for this shit, blame the goddamn Brits and Balfour for this shit. The reality is that
the Balfour Declaration is like a huge part of why this happened, but that the Balfour Declaration arose out of anti-Semitism. It wasn't out of finding a place where the Jews felt like they were home. It was an anti-Semitism. Balfour was absolutely an anti-Semitist, and the entire idea was to get them away from us. It wasn't to give them their homeland. Like
you're talking about a conversation without a discretion here. It's like, all right, cool. It was done for anti-Semitic reasons versus like finding the Israelis their homeland. Either which way, the conversation is the Israelis are there now.
Well, either which way is the argument is that, oh yeah, the fucking English people dropped them there in 1917.
So okay,
or 1914.
Going,
I forget
I
which
have
one
to
it
step
was.
in a little bit because I feel like
Yeah,
we're
go
going
ahead,
down
buddy.
we're going down
right.
the typical rabbit hole that we always go down when we start talking about the Israel Palestine conflict, right? As we eventually somehow end up in the 1800s with our little shovel going, who dug first? So or 400 BC, however far back you want to go. And so to save us from that, I want to talk about the current issue. Okay. I understand that there is some historical context there, but the simple fact is that we have tensions rising in the Middle East. Right. And to me, and this is where I want to start kind of getting things to a little bit more of a wrapped up part here is that, and by the way, guys, if you're in the chat and you want to jump in and you want to have an open panel discussion with all of us here, feel free to do so. Jump in the Discord. What I want to say is that we have tensions rising in the Middle East. And I know, Wes, you don't like a lot about electoralism, but I do want to sit here and say we do have 2 candidates on the ballot within the next month that are going to be elected as the next president of the United States. And this is where I want to start getting us to kind of wrapping up. Who do you guys think are going to be the best candidates for those Middle East relations, for helping to tone down that tension a little bit, and even more so to extend it a little bit beyond there, just a little bit without going to a full-blown conversation, a little bit about the Ukraine side as well, and as well as the sleeping giant, which is the Chinese-Taiwan tension that's going on. That's kind of the sleeping giant, but it's out there, and everybody should know it's out there. So which presidents do you guys think and why would be the best candidates for those particular issues? Go ahead. I'll let Tiberius start, and then we'll start wrapping things down after this.
I don't know who actually would be better because I don't really see that there's going to be a significant difference between these 2 contenders on this one. While Kamala has been a little bit more like saying pro-interest in peace, is that like even the majority of the Democratic Party like strongly supports Israel on this. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of people break away on that particular issue. And I don't think you're going to see Harris break away on that issue. I think it's very clear that Trump is going to be like, hey, if Israel wants it and needs it, we'll probably help them. But remind you, like, I don't think that's actually that much different. I think the Democrats will largely be a little bit more like tongue in cheek about it, where they'll be like, "We want to help Israel," and we won't like be as like hawkish about it in rhetoric, but in practice, we're gonna send them, a couple more $1 billion of stuff. It's the best weapon D project, or sorry, R&D weapons project we've ever had. Literally, just throw their our equipment over there, let them test it out in a combat condition after we've evaluated that we want to put it into service. And that's what we're going to do. Like, this has been literally the greatest project that the DoD has ever had. And we're probably going to continue that. And I don't see Republicans or Democrats changing in any significant way on that. Israel is very useful to us in many, many, many ways. And I don't think either of these candidates are wanting to break away from that.
Wes, where do you stand on which candidate do you think would be better for Middle East relations? Or in your case, because I know you do, you're very passionate about a particular cause in the Middle East. Who do you think is going to be the better candidate for that particular cause? I feel like I already know the answer, but
I mean, you do and you don't.
Okay.
Because I'm actually I'm agreeing with Tiberius a lot more than you might expect here.
Okay.
Neither candidate is going to be a significant change in our policy in the Middle East, especially regarding Israel. It was Joe Biden himself who said in like 1984, 1985, that if Israel didn't exist, then we would create an Israel, because it is literally our stronghold in the Middle East. It is where we control things from, and it is our little sister. And that is a bipartisan, or a bipartisan agreement. Both parties agree that we should support Israel. And so I agree that it really doesn't matter that much. I think that electing Kamala would probably be slightly better. She's more like, I don't know, cognizant of talks about a ceasefire, and like she seems a little bit more willing to talk about something like that. But I don't know. I guess I agree. I don't think there's any significant.
Well, yeah, I got you. So this is the one thing that's great about the political compass. Sometimes we get a lot of agreement. In this case, I think on almost all topics. Granted, there was a few disagreements, but they were very minor. I'll work better to get better topics where we can disagree. I will say this: I do have a very special guest that will be coming on probably next week. No, I'm gonna hold it as a secret, but we are, that little saying that a little spice is a little nice is gonna be very true come next Saturday. So we won't have complete agreement. I can guarantee you that. Let's just say they love to drink and they're a little bit on the huskier side. And I say that out of love, okay? And you guys can guess. We'll let you kind of figure that out. But we do have, I want to wrap this up. I want to give our final thoughts on everything that's going on in our current state of politics. And here's what I'm going to say, and to wrap this up, and then I'll let everybody else kind of give their outros. And we've also got some guests waiting, so we'll bring them in as well. So don't go nowhere. What I'll say is this, is that it's undoubted. It's doubtful. Doubtably. Thank you. My mind is fried. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So it's without a doubt that I think that we are heading in a direction that is terrifying with one candidate versus the other. I'm a pro Kamala simp. I love Kamala Harris and Coach Walz. I think that they are going to bring that little bit of normalcy that we are absolutely missing. When we look at FEMA aid, to kind of give that perspective, I think the FEMA aid being given by Congress is kind of the way to go. I do feel for Mandy, and I want to shout this out again and again. If you're able to donate to the Red Cross, please do so if you're able to. I wish that I could do a whole stream dedicated to it. Unfortunately, I work a 9 to 5. If you guys want to support me and throw a little money my way, I might be able to do it full time. But anyways, if you could also just like and subscribe. But so when it comes to the debate, I think that the debate, it looks like it's either or. It depends on how you look at it. And I think it was a net neutral according to the polls for all intents and purposes. The polls really just kind of left it exactly how it has been. It doesn't look like either candidate really pulled their the other ally, their other running mate very much further anyways. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, I dip out because I don't know jack squat about foreign policy. And if I did, I would look like an amateur. Okay. These guys here would make me look embarrassed. So Ty, go ahead and give your outro, and then we'll move over to Wes, and then we'll start bringing in. It looks like we have Redtron waiting over there in the gallery.
My name is Tiberius D. If you guys looked, if you guys found what I had to say interesting, feel free to come check me out on most social medias. I literally only do the politics anymore on like live streams for YouTube and for Twitch. I'm actually kind of having a conversation about shifting all my stuff in terms of like being a lore channel just for like the produced content. But yeah, I'm happy to have chats if you guys want to ask me anything. I'm pretty available, so feel free to send me a message on like Facebook or Twitter or whatever the hell else that you want to. I'm pretty good about replying to those. But outside of that, just feel free to stop by, say hello, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right. I don't really care. Just as long as you're not like crazy ass left or MAGA, I will probably get along with you pretty well.
That sounds great. Wes, go ahead and give us your outro, and then we will start moving in Redtron.
Hey, I'm Wesley. I use he, they pronouns. Either set works fine. And don't message me on anything. Don't find me on anything. I'm just here for the good chats.
There you go.
I have nothing that I need to plug. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, guys. And so this is going to conclude the closed political compass. I want to thank everybody who's watching this afterwards. Please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell if you are watching this on YouTube. If you are watching this on Twitter, hit that follow button. We are almost to 1,000 freaking followers. All right, we're almost to 700 followers. Let's get to 1,000. Okay. And if you're on Twitch, hit that follow button. Now, with that said, thank you so much. Y'all have a great night. And there we go. Now we're gonna go to open panel. So let's go ahead and drop in Redtron. I had to do that for the YouTube guys. If y'all aren't familiar, okay, look, if you drop, look, we lost viewers because y'all thought I was leaving. Come on now, that has to do it for YouTube. I streamed to 3 platforms. All right, now we're open. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in Redtron and see what he has to say. Let me bring Redtron in here, buddy. What's going on, Redtron? My editor. Shout out to this editor. This man puts in some work.
I want to ask Redtron something too.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. We're open. This is now no longer for the tube. Okay, so we are unprofessional as hell. Okay, so
well, if Redtron has something they want to say, I want to let them give a chance.
The one thing I wanted to mention was with the Israel-Palestine and the difference between Kamala Harris and Trump is it feels like Trump. You know how when parents get divorced, one parent's really strict and one parent's really like loose. It feels like Trump is the parent who lets their kid not do their homework. Trump's the parent who feeds them all the candy, and that's the difference. Is Kamala Harris is like, hey, you need to solve this situation with Gaza. Kamala Harris would be the one to push change. And if you study the Israel-Palestine history, pretty much the only improvement in Gaza's situation comes from an American president laying down the law. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
basically my one.
I wanted to ask you a question. You said Balfour was not an anti-Semite, and I may have gotten that wrong. But wasn't the Balfour Declaration of like 1914 or 1917 wasn't that basically an anti-Semitic declaration? Like they were trying to get those people out of the country rather than like provide them their quote unquote destined land.
There are people who make that argument, but they're mostly like plimp chimping. They're taking small quotes out of context. Like I'm pretty sure Balfour said that I will be accused of being an anti-Semite, and then people like take that to say that he was saying he was an anti-Semite. But his overall idea, and if you read his letters and his journals and everything, was Europe doesn't owe the Jews anything. Europe has betrayed the Jews. We cast them aside. We let them get holocausted. We did not take care of them. So the Jews don't owe anything to Europe is pretty much was the overall idea. And that we owe them a homeland because we treated them so poorly.
Redtron, you might have just said 3 different terms back to back that probably I don't know if it's against TOS.
You're fine.
Okay,
No,
good.
no. He's fine. But but then they gave them a piece of land that formerly belonged to the Ottoman Empire. We're getting way too deep in the weeds. And
We're gonna have to.
Doghouse doesn't love this.
Doghouse, I know you.
Land.
Hey, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do because I do have to go and I do need to get some food. Okay, here's what we're going to do.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna direct everybody over to Tiberius's channel. Okay, because I know y'all are
Sure.
gonna get into the weeds, and what I don't want to do, and I'm doing this for one specific reason. I want Redtron, I want Wes, and I want Tiberius to have this conversation. But what I don't want to do is in the middle go, "Hey guys, I gotta dip out," and then cut y'all's
Sure.
conversation short. So what I'm gonna do is I want you guys to go and check out Tiberius's channel. I'm gonna go ahead and rate him right now. And what I want you all to do is Redtron and Wes, if you want to go ahead and join Tiberius's Discord, and anybody else, feel free to do so. And that way you guys can have that conversation because I don't want to interrupt that conversation because I know how long these conversations can go. It's only
Yeah.
taken place for what, 200 years? I don't have time for 200 years. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead to Twitch. For anybody who's on Twitter or YouTube, please make sure you drop that follow. I want you guys to come back. We will be doing something a little different on Tuesday. I am going to try to bring on some other guests, and we're going to do more guest-oriented shows on Tuesdays. A lot of times when we start doing these things where we kind of, just ramble off topics, I kind of feel like it's not super entertaining. So I want to provide a little bit of entertainment to you guys. So we're going to bring on some individual guests that have nothing to do with the political compass, though they may be a guest on the political compass in the future. They're just kind of random guests. Okay. They may be a little bit more hot, a little bit more spicy than what you're used to on the political compass. So
Is this who I'm thinking about or not?
well, that's
Is
not
this
something I have-
is this my friend or is this somebody else?
well, next week on the political compass, I'm trying to get somebody that might be a little bombastic and
All right, just message me so
I'll
I know
message
what we're
you.
talking about.
I don't want to say anything for two reasons. One, I don't know if he's going to be here, and two, a little surprise is always
Facts.
nice, right? So,
Yeah.
I kind of little hinted. Okay, if you don't get it by now, I'm sorry. And it's not. I'll tell you this as a fact. It's not Rob Noor. I'm not going to have him
Oh,
on unless
thank Christ.
that's a separate thing. Okay, we're not.
I was
bringing
gonna
him on-
say you're supposed to bring reasonable people here, all right? And that's not reasonable, okay?
Listen. All right, let me go ahead and raid you before all my viewers start like dipping out. Let me go ahead and raid Tiberius D. Is it Tiberius _D? I always forget that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We go ahead and raid you with all of our viewers. Guys, please make sure you go follow him. Thank y'all so much. And again, we're going to be changing up things a little bit on Tuesdays. Saturdays, Political Compass, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Same cast that you always see. Some extra guests coming in as well. So, guys, y'all have a good one. Go show our boy Tiberius D some love. They're about to get into some spicy topics about the Israel-Palestine-Lebanon debate, and I am dipping the hell out, just like the U.S. did to Israel, okay? I'm kidding. No, they definitely did not. But anyways, all right, guys.